We think you should know that Imperfect Heroes podcast is a production of Little Hearts Academy USA.
You're listening to episode 142 of Imperfect Heroes, Insights into Parenting, the perfect podcast for imperfect parents looking to find joy in their experience of raising children in an imperfect world. And I'm your host, DJ Stutz. Welcome, heroes and heroines, and I'm so glad you've chosen to spend the next few minutes with us here at Imperfect Heroes. As you can see, I have an amazing guest with me, and before we get started though, I want to share with you that if you are local to the general Idaho Falls area, on April 10th, I have an event that I am doing with Lindsay Shumway, and she is the director of Hello Bliss Life Coaching. And we're going to work together. It's going to be a thing just for mamas, and it's in Idaho Falls. It'll be 90 minutes, and we are talking about communication and communicating with our kids, communicating with our coworkers and with our spouses, and just those who are in our life. And so if you're interested in that, I'm going to put the link to the registration in the show notes. So be sure and go there. The link will also be on the website, which is www.littleheartsacademyusa.com. And while you're there, you should sign up for our newsletter. It only comes out twice a month. We don't inundate you, but you are welcome to that. And you might see a little action going on behind us here, door opening and closing. We have Paxton with us, who, Lindsay, this is your current youngest.
Yes.
I say current because there's another one on the way. This will make 4 kids for you. Yes. That is so exciting. So Lindsey Terry is actually a local. We do our workouts together. We go to church together. And you work 2 towns over in Rexburg. And so
I manage a mobile home park.
There you go. Yeah. She's the manager of the mobile home park in Rexburg, Idaho. So lots of fun there. And so we're talking today, and let me get comfortable. That'll be better. She's a little nervous. I'm so intimidating. But today we're talking just about patience and how, when you're in knee deep, my kids are gone, my grandkids, they're all over. I get to see them sometimes, but a kindergartner is my youngest of the 12. And so it's nice for me to say, I do the research and I've got the education and I taught kindergarten for a million years. And it's nice for me to say that. And I have a lot of things to help with, but I want to hear how it works every day in your home. So you have a daughter, 2 sons, and then who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? So it's hard sometimes, I think, to really manage patience when they are doing their thing.
Right. Yeah, sometimes, yes.
So I remember at exercise class last week, and Paxton was having a rough go.
Yes.
And I looked at you and I thought, yes, she's the one who needs to talk about patience, because you were awesome.
Oh, no.
You were awesome because you took to him and his needs, right?
Well, thank you.
And I loved that. And of course, everybody in the group loved Paxton. And so there's no judgment there. You're in a safe place. And so that's got to feel good. But what do you do? Like, how do you start out with that? And how young are you working with teaching them patience?
I think it starts out from the beginning, even when they're just a little baby. Because I feel like when they're small and you're exhausted because you're a new mom, they feel that from you. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of it comes from, sometimes I have to count to 10. Sometimes I might need to count to 15 and take some deep breaths. But I really work with my kids that they need to take deep breaths before we get started, if they're hurt or if they're mad, because I feel like a lot can happen in those first few minutes or seconds, and then they hit their friend, hit their sibling, or that I'm just like, then I lose it, or,
Yeah.
So I just really think working on, okay, let's control ourselves. Then I can help you try to control yourself.
Right.
So I think it starts with me and then goes to the kids.
Oh my gosh, you are perfect.
It's not always perfect,
No,
but
nobody is.
that's what we try to do.
Well, and I always say, even Joseph and Mary were mortal,
Right.
And if you look at the list of all the boys that they had, I'm sure they had their days. I'm just saying, I'm sure they had their days. So it's okay, is what I'm saying. And so one of the things that you said that I just totally love is that it starts with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's really easy when they're doing their thing to just, right? And so when you say, I have to take a minute, maybe count to 10, take a breath, you're giving yourself all of these tools to use appropriately before you go and annihilate the kids.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So, and you mentioned hitting too. I just have this thing in my head. I remember I was a kid growing up in LA. It was the 70s, I know, I'm old. And I remember seeing this mom was yelling at her kid in the parking lot. We were going into the grocery store, and she's like hitting her kid, saying, "Quit hitting your brother." And I thought, wow. Rules for thee and not for me. Huh?
Right. Yes.
But I just remember that hit me, and I had to be like maybe 10 years old, 12, early tween area. And I just remember that hit me. Hitting, huh?
Hit.
Yeah. There are other wet things to do, huh? Yes. And I remember that just hit me. Or then, how often do we see, I still see this now, is people yelling, "I'm tired of you screaming!
Yeah.
I'm tired of your yelling!" Right? And it's like, oh, okay. I wonder where they got that.
From someone, huh?
Or you can say that poor sweet mama. She's at her wit's end. I wish so many times I want to go up to people and say, "Can I help you? Like, can I watch your kid and you go do your thing, or entertain your kid in line because you look like you're on your last breath." Yeah. But you never know how people are going to take it.
Right.
So, who are you? So anyway, so you start with you, and then what's the next thing you do?
Then we just kind of try to talk it out. Because sometimes, if I think I see it with 3 kids, I have an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an almost 3-year-old. And it doesn't always go how I see it either. So I try with my older ones. Paxton's learning how to express himself and talk. But
Clearly.
But I try to figure out what's going on with both sides, and then we just kind of discuss what happened in the situation. And so then it gives me a little bit more time to be like, okay, don't freak out. Because, sometimes it's a big thing and sometimes it's just a small thing. And we resolve it as quick as we can, but really focusing on, you can't get angry. And then, because I have a boy and a girl, you can't just be sassy and be mean to him, and you can't just tackle her. Like, it won't solve it. It's just, like, we have to use our words, and that's what we try to do, is just figure out really what the situation, and then how could it have been better, and what were our rules before, and we got to keep those so that it doesn't happen again. So
I love that. Yeah, you're doing great. I really like the idea of practicing when they're not mad at each other. So I'm a big advocate. If anyone's listening, you've heard this before. So we're just having a conversation here. Weekly meetings with our family, right? And maybe during that time when everyone's happy, or you're singing fun songs, and maybe you've got some fun desserts or whatever. But let them do some role play with maybe a common problem that comes up between them. And then say, "All right, Annie, how are you going to handle this?" And give her a chance to think it through. Or you can even team up, and Annie goes with you, and Jason goes with Dad, and you team plan, how are you going to do this, right? And then you come back and let them role play it out. And then if they have time to practice, that practice makes not perfect, but better. Practice makes better. And then they have a chance to then look back on, we've practiced this. happens.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah.
Well, great. So one of the things that I notice in teaching kindergarten or sometimes even being at the store or whatever, and again, I'm just kind of like this poor mama or this poor dad, right? But you see kids being like really demanding and they'll start yelling or, you know. I had one little girl, her dad came to pick her up and he's like, sweetie, I'm late. Those bangs you hear is just toys, fish being thrown. Don't worry about it. But we had a little girl, her dad came to pick her up and he's like, sweetie, I gotta go, I'm late for a meeting. And she's like, but I want to play on the playground. And he says, I know, and another day we can, but I've got to go, sweetie. You're a bad daddy, and you're mean, and and she starts going after him. Well, my classroom had windows overlooking the playground. And as I looked out there she was playing on the playground. And Dad's late for his meeting. And so sometimes we have kids that are really impatient. They want what they want now. I'm sure that never happens to you.
Oh, never, no.
So what are some of the things maybe that you do to help them through that when this isn't the right time?
Yeah, I think that comes up a lot with us because I am a working mom, and so sometimes it is a bit trickier. My husband is a coach, and so we're always off to sporting events. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes we don't get a lot of park time, but we get a lot of outside time. But I think just them knowing kind of how your day goes. Like Paxton knows, like, we're going to go to work. We go to exercise class, we go to work. Yes. But if we have something in the time, like when I was getting dressed, I turned on a quick show for him and said, hey, you get to watch this, but we'll shut it off. And today he didn't throw a fit. He's like, okay, I'll be happy. I think just the repetition of it, because, that's a big part of them playing or going, they want to do something fun and they want to do it the ones they love. But it can't always work out, and it does work out. So I think just knowing that you can follow through with that, and that it's going to be okay if it doesn't happen right then.
Right.
That they know ahead of time. They'll probably forget, they're little. But, as you talk, they're going to pick up on it. They're smart.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
And then, I don't know, I was in Winco the other day, and he just did not want to go grocery shopping. I'm like, we're going to do this. And he's just screaming. I'm like, okay, it's just going to be real quick. Yeah. And this lady came, she's like, here, I keep this keychain on my keys. And he looks like he needs, I said, that would be wonderful. And sometimes you just need other help. You need those angels out there that are looking out for you.
That are just, us old grandma ladies.
That are just like, here, let me help you. Like you mentioned, like, sometimes I just want to be that person. And sometimes it's just nice to know that there's people out there that, I've done everything and we might have to go to this grocery store screaming and we're going to go quick. But sometimes it doesn't work out like we want to in our heads. But then people help and step in. So,
and that's lovely, isn't it? Yeah. It's that community.
It is.
thing.
And it's nice. And, sometimes it doesn't happen and eventually they calm down and you move on. But I mean, I feel like every time before we even go into a grocery store, I'm like, okay, we're getting what's on the list. We can't ask for more things. We're not. And we avoid the toy aisle mostly. There are some days I'm like, okay, we've got birthdays coming up. And I'm like, I'm not going to put them in a situation where they want all these things when I know I can't get them for them.
Right.
Or we're not going to even consider it. And some days we do consider it. So I'm like, okay, well, let's check it out. Mm-hmm. But on the days I'm like, no, we're not. And I'm not going to put that roadblock for me, for them in that moment,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, you've mentioned a couple of things that I think are key in with the parents that I work with as a coach and with you just doing your awesome mommy thing is number one, you talk to them before you go in. So we're going in. And he may or may not, he's 2. Right. But he's getting in that habit of you're telling him, and this is what we need to do. We're going to go quickly. Yeah. And then you also mentioned having a list. That's another thing that I really think helps kids when they go in is knowing that there's a list and even maybe letting them hold the list.
Right. Yeah, or mark the items off.
Yes.
And if they draw all over it, okay, well,
that's all right.
I probably forgot something on the list anyways.
It always happens. Well, and I had to have a rule because you'll be so surprised to hear that I can get a little scattered. sometimes. And so it seems like there's always something that I forget. And it's not on the list. But the kids, especially once they start reading, it's like, that's not on the list, right? And so we would do a thing where you can have one thing that is not on the list.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so that saved me. But then they would get in there, and now they're concentrating on what do I want to get that's not on my list.
Right.
And so if it's like a candy bar or I don't know, whatever kind of things that they like to get. And if they pick something quickly, then you might say, okay, but that's your one thing. Right. So,
well,
if you find something else, you got to put that back. So now they're thinking, and now their mind isn't quite on, I hate being here.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But I love the idea that you have a list and they have a pen and they're marking things off. And, if they wreck it, they wreck it. But... or maybe you have a list and they have a list. This is yours, this is mommy's.
Right. That's actually a really good idea. Probably should have done that yesterday.
Well, like I said, I'm out of it. And so I think it's easy for people who have raised their kids, but they can look back. There's so many things that I wish I knew when I was raising my kids. And looking back, I think, I could have done this better. And this is probably how. Anyway. Just don't write off us old farts too quickly, I guess, is what I'm saying. But I think we also need to remember that when I was raising my kids in the 2000s and late 90s, because Christian was born in 88. Noelle was born in 95. Yeah. It's different. There's new technologies. There's new social pressures. I think another thing that maybe might help is even having like a calendar of what's going on today so that they know what's coming next. That's going to work more with your older kids. Right. Yeah. But even with Paxton, when he can see you crossing things off, and then at the end or at some point it's something fun he likes to do. Right. So it's like, 2 more things. And then we're doing this. Yeah. Right?
No, that's true.
And so it's a visual. Mm-hmm. And I know my middle daughter, Rocky, they were just being so busy during the summer last year. And her son, he's a little more introverted, but he loves being busy and doing things. Mm-hmm. But one day he just looked up at his mom and he said, when are we just going to have a day where we stay at home? I need home days. And so they actually wound up putting them in the calendar. So they had like the dry erase thing. Yeah. And so he could look and see because
that's good.
Yeah, they were busy and with dance and gymnastics and taekwondo, and he's on a climbing team, and he's a lot. And so he just needed that. Yeah. To see and to plan ahead, and that helped him. Some of those kind of things are good too. And so I think too, though, sometimes they want something now that it really can't happen. Right. In fact, it can't happen for a while. Mm-hmm. Right. So how would you manage that?
I mean, I guess we just do the same, and sometimes it's just, we try to teach them like there's consequences to all of your actions, and good consequences, bad consequences.
Yeah, consequences aren't necessarily bad.
No, and so I just think that sometimes helps, and them knowing. I mean, if they don't get the answer they want and they just get angry and act out in the wrong ways, then there's a consequence for that action. Yeah. And so, I don't know, it's tricky. I'm living that, And sometimes like our kids ask, when are we going to the beach? We live in Idaho. We are never getting to the beach. But I'm like, maybe one day when we go back to Texas. But we took them to the aquarium, and there was sand in there. So it was like, we're at the beach. And so I'm like, sometimes. And we had no idea what was going to be at the aquarium. And I'm like, well, here we go. This is like the beach. And we got to see all these animals. Sometimes the perfect situation just falls into your lap without you looking for it.
Isn't that fun when that happens? Well, and you're going to see a lot more sea animals at the aquarium than you will at the beach.
Right.
And sometimes it's nice to have that glass between you because there's sharks and there's...
Right. Yes. And I hate sand, so I'm like,
Oh.
I don't really want to take you to the beach, but that was like a perfect, there was no cats around, it's inside, I don't know, the sand grosses me out. But so I'm like, they got their beach fill.
Yeah.
But they know, I'm like, well, we would like to take them there.
Yeah.
It's just not something that's realistic right now for where we're at.
Exactly.
But there's a lot of other fun things. So maybe talking about other fun things you could do rather than the one thing that they're focused on. But because I think it comes down to the biggest thing is they just want to have fun and spend time with their family.
Yeah.
So, and I think if you're able, as we try to do that, or we focus on that, if we haven't really focused on that for a couple days, I think that's just the heart of it. So doing something with them versus, okay, you do this, I'm exhausted from work.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do some me time, Sometimes we need that. Yeah. But they need that, and they need that time with us. So
they absolutely do. Yeah. And so it's kind of hard to find that balance. And I think, too, we talk about, I need my me time, or I need to self-care, all that stuff. But you're going to have 4 kids. Right? And so I don't think that you're looking at a whole afternoon or whatever, right?
No, but sometimes I'm like, okay, 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, but you're exactly right. Sometimes it is just that 5 minutes or a nice warm shower or
then
some of those
ready.
things. Yeah. For me, anyway, it was those quiet moments with my kids.
Right.
When they snuggle in and they tell me they love me, or you see them actually work through a problem because you've been practicing it.
Right. Yes.
And you're like, oh, I feel so good. I am the mother of the year. This just happened.
That, and they listen to what you're saying. And they're doing it. So it is. That's a nice thing.
It is a nice thing. And so I think it's really important to recognize those moments of success or of peace and being patient with that, And I know it doesn't help when you say, before you know it, they'll all be gone, right? And it's like, no, I'm dying now. I am drowning in emotion, in frustration, and I need help now, not in, 10 years from now.
I guess that's nice where every day's a new day. As long as you don't bring yesterday into today, then you just, know.
And you can even say every hour's a new hour.
That is true.
Right? Oh, just blew that
one. We're going to do better this evening.
Yes. Well, and sometimes, it's okay when you catch yourself being impatient. Because you often, I don't know. Maybe I don't say you.
You are. You're going to be impatient. You're like, I need to be better. And it's, I don't know. In those moments, I'm like, okay, I really shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And then it's important that, like, Scott and I will talk to our kids and be like, we kind of lost it. But we still love you. Like, I think it's important because you're not perfect. And they don't need to think that you are. Because then that's really unrealistic for your kids.
Right. And it's awful hard to live up to.
Yes. And, sheesh. What happens. But I feel like if they know that they love you and you're still working on patience in yourself, it's something that they can acquire in themselves as well.
Well, and I think too, like when you catch yourself being impatient, so whether it's yelling at the kids or being snippy or, just come on, whatever, that when you catch yourself doing that, it's okay to stop right then and say, oh, wow, when did I start yelling?
Right.
Yeah. Because you're so nice and quiet and sweet, but I am not. And so I would be, a ton of times, I'll recognize, wait a minute, I am yelling.
Right. They picked that up from me. Yeah. So I need to change me so that they can change them.
But if they see you catching yourself and saying, I was being really impatient and I was being whatever.
Right.
And I need to stop. Hang on just a second, kiddos. Mommy needs to calm down. And they're like, what is she doing, right?
Right.
It'll catch them off guard. But then they're seeing you working through it verbally. And so they can work through it after your example.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
You're awesome.
Oh, goodness. Sometimes no. let you know.
Of course sometimes no. Of course. Like, give yourself a break. But here's what I love, and this is what I think is why I call the parents that are listening to the podcast or watching it, that they're heroes. They're imperfect heroes. Yeah. But because they're listening to, especially my podcast, but, other parenting podcasts, or looking for resources, reading books, watching people who you think are successful, or talking to someone who's older that might have some different ideas on things that you can do, then you're trying to do better.
Right.
The super talented didn't start out there. No. Right? Yeah. They made mistakes and they stopped and they learned and they analyzed. Well, what made me miss that note or whatever? Right. Why did I do that wrong? And then you start looking back, and that's how they get better, is analyzing and not beating themselves up, but being more curious about it. Yeah. Right.
Oh, for sure.
And just saying, wow, that didn't go well.
Try something different tomorrow or later.
Yeah. Or what led up to that too.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Was I tired? Was I angry at my husband? Of course, Scott, you could never get angry at him.
I know, he's amazing.
Or what was going on? I'm worried about my mom. My mom's sick.
Right.
Or,
that led to the result. Yeah.
Sure. And then you can say, okay, what can I do to plan things so that I'm not getting as frazzled, that I'm not getting as tired, or maybe I need to have a bag of carrot sticks with me, or Oreo cookies.
Ours are little bags of marshmallows. Marshmallows and chocolate chips. Chocolate works for us. It's going to work for your kids too.
I know, dark chocolate, man, that's my thing. And then you start taking that analyzing and taking it to your kids. Wow, they really did have a meltdown in the grocery store. Right. What are some things I could have done differently leading up to that might have helped that out? Mm-hmm. And of course we know nothing works 100% of the time. Not even on the same kid. Right? So what worked yesterday with Annie, it's not going to work today maybe.
Right.
Just depending on the mood. But then tomorrow it might.
Yeah.
Right? That can make you really patient.
Right.
Wait a minute, we have this down.
Right.
How dare you go back to that? Jason or whatever. So it's stopping and taking back and saying, okay, worked yesterday, didn't work today, and it's okay. Right. And sometimes you just need to change things up a little bit. But I love your attitude.
Thank you.
You're awesome.
It takes a team. So I'm really glad that I have Scott to help me. Or a family. Like sometimes you don't have a partner or a husband or a spouse, and but you always have a friend or a family, and it's good to lean on people.
It is good to lean on people. Yeah. And for those who are raising kids alone, first off, my heart breaks for you. That's hard. Whether you've got 1 or 5, it's hard. But you brought up such a great thing, and if you don't have family around, find, friends.
Find a community.
Go to church.
Yeah.
And you're going to find good people there. I don't care which denomination you go to, but you're going to find people who have commonalities and maybe live by you, and get involved in their school and at the PTA. I always say PTA because I used to
still PTA.
do PTA. Is it? Okay. Because I know some schools don't, but... Yeah, but get involved in the PTA. You're going to find other moms that are the moms of their friends in class. Right. And you can make connections there. Mm-hmm. And so, maybe you can get some help with someone picking up your kiddo after school or whatever. And so, finding that. And then you can calm down a little bit and not feel quite so stressed.
Right.
Yeah. It's a stressful world. Mm-hmm. And that added stress just adds to our impatience. Don't you think?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And so when I was raising my kids, it feels like, well, Shiloh, he's older. It's Candace and then Shiloh. Okay. I remember when he was like they didn't go to preschool. I home taught them until kindergarten, and then kindergarten, and MTV was just starting, and it was so cool. It wasn't raunchy or disgusting. It was fun. But so it's a very different world than it is now. Yeah. And so I feel like you're challenged. Yeah. But you've got it.
Yeah.
You've got it. And it's nice that you have a great husband and you have some family around, and you've got the old ladies at the
Yes, we love
exercise class.
Yes.
Yeah. Our town's so small, you guys, that we have downtown consists of a post office that's open from 9 to noon, 5 days a week. There's a park with a pavilion, and that's our downtown.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. And so we meet at the pavilion for our exercise class and have fun. But you're meeting other people in the neighborhood,
Right.
in town.
It's good.
And it's good. And you've got people you can call on, including this one.
Yeah. I know that.
So, Lindsay, thank you so much. And so if anybody has questions for Lindsay, you can always drop them in the comments for the show, or you can go, I am on Facebook and Instagram. If you just look Imperfect Heroes Podcast on both of those, that's where I am. And then remember that I do a live short session every Tuesday night. So on Facebook, I am live at 7, and on Instagram, I'm live at 7:30. And so we usually talk about our topic for the week. And then if anyone has questions, then they can always put them in the comments there, and we can do that. So I really appreciate you, Lindsay, for coming in, and I appreciate Russell for playing with Paxton. So that works out well. Before we go, though, I always ask my guests the same question. And so, parents are imperfect heroes, but some parents are more successful than others. And so what would you consider a successful parent?
I think one that can set some good boundaries, realistic boundaries, and show love. I think that as you create those boundaries or expectations for them, you're setting them kind of for yourself too. And so you're always checking yourself, and you're allowing, just reality to happen. So, you can make it harder, so you don't want to set unrealistic goals for your family or goals for your kids. But I think it's important for them to know that you have expectations and that there are consequences, good or bad, either way. Yeah. And so it doesn't mean you have to give them this firm punishment, no. But to know, okay, well, maybe you do quiet time in your room because you didn't do what you're supposed to, and that helps your child, it helps you. And so I think you can be successful if you just set realistic boundaries and goals in your family.
Right.
So.
Well, and those boundaries help kids know what to expect.
Right.
They're not wondering what kind of mood mom or dad is in.
Well, and every kid's going to test the limits, but they might not test
that's their
it
job.
as hard. Right. But they're not going to be like, well, we didn't talk about this, so let's figure out what it is.
I know. There are so many times, and it's going to happen more and more, especially when they get to teenagers. It's like, oh, never saw that coming. Wow, I would have never thought of that. You have opened a door for me to understand more.
Just by learning trial by error.
Yeah.
And what you do with one kid, you'll be a better parent for your next ones. And then it will flow into the first one, obviously. But
us the oldest. You're not an oldest,
no,
are
I'm
you?
in the middle.
Yeah. Oh, well, there's that. But I'm an oldest. And I look at my oldest, and it's just it's a miracle that any of us, she made it at all. Right.
You both have to grow. You're both learning.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know how old you were, but I was 22 when I had Candace. So
21.
And 21. So it's I had a lot of growing up still to do.
Right.
Still to do. So
and they still love us, so it's good.
It is. It is good. So it's a miracle. All right. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. And I know you were really nervous.
I was, but thank you for having me and pushing me. Pushing me to do this.
This is going to push your limits. You're going to grow. So thanks so much for coming. And so everyone, again, remember to check out and sign up for our newsletter. It's free. And next week, it's going to be just me. And we're going to just be talking more about buttoning up this whole session, this whole month on patience and things that we can do and how we can look at this. So anyway, until next week, everyone, let's find joy in parenting. Bye-bye, guys.